Okay, let's start with a question. How many of us went to business school when we started up in business?
I expect there won't be a particularly large show of hands.
No, and that's because most of us decided to go into business just doing something that we love, or maybe something that we're really good at doing.
It's usually a little way down the line that we start to reflect on not actually gaining a grounding in the useful things like sales, marketing, finance and operations.
Yeah, and that's when it all starts to feel, well, a bit difficult.
I'm Nicky. I've been running businesses since 2004, and I'm the founder of the Growth Community, which is a place where businesses come to network and support each other's business success.
And I'm James, and I started my business back in 2020, helping businesses, brands and organisations to unlock the power of podcasting, basically using audio as a way to market and grow their business.
Well, in our line of work, we both meet a lot of businesses and we're constantly learning new things from being around them. Every day literally is a business school day.
So we thought, why not grab some of this good stuff and turn it into a podcast? So please take your seats. Class is about to start.
Well, welcome back, class, and we're back into another super lesson. Today, we're talking about events, which we all do, but actually, do we do them thoughtfully and strategically? Because today we're going to talk about events from a marketing perspective with Zoe. So, Zoe, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, Zoe Wadsworth of Ask Zoe. My background is very much marketing and events. Had an events business previously under the brand Fab Events.
Yeah, because I think we all know we've got to do events. We all go to events, but actually there's a lot of time, money and energy goes into events, whether you're putting them on yourself or whether you're going to other people's events. At some point, you've actually got to question why you're doing it, what you want from it.
What's the point?
Exactly. What is the point? You know,
in a non-aggressive way, but genuinely. So we've talked about this from a networking perspective quite a few times, which is
we have.
Do networking because they think everyone does networking, therefore I should do it. But what do you actually want out of it? Where are you heading? What are you trying to achieve right now? Therefore, how is networking going to help you with that? And it'll also help you figure out the kind of networking that you should go to and the sort of stuff that you should be doing. I think, and feel absolutely free to disagree with me entirely on this, Zoe, but I feel that events kind of sits under a very similar sort of thing there to networking in terms of it's very easy to be a busy fool and go to a lot of events and think, I'm so busy. But what's the point?
It is, and it's funny you say what's the point, because I'll say to anyone who speaks to me about events in terms of they feel like, they're a waste of time for the business, they feel like they're not getting that return. And I'll always say, so what is the so what factor for you? Why did you pick that event? Why did you pick that networking event? Why did you decide to put this event on? And if someone says to me, I do not know, or because somebody told me to do it, I'd always say that's not a good enough reason, because it has to come back to that so what factor and that why. You should know why you're attending that event. You should know why you're going to that networking event. You should have an intention, maybe not an end goal in mind, because networking is quite flexible in the beginning until you find the right kind of networking and a community to be involved with. But especially with events, a lot of time and effort goes into events in terms of, like Nicky said, attending them or hosting them. And if you don't know what that so what factor is for you in your business, I'll ultimately say you're wasting your time and your money because it will fall flat. Because if you don't get it, how are your audience meant to get it?
I always put return on investment certainly for networking, 'cause obviously I witter on about networking a lot. But I always kind of put the return on investment into two camps, in that there's what I call the tangible return on investment and the intangible return on investment. Because the tangible is obvious. It's, I spent this amount of time and money on something and I gained this amount of money, in return in terms of sales or whatever it is. The intangible can actually sometimes be more valuable in some ways, because there's there's a whole array of intangible stuff you can get from being around either in a networking or an expo or whatever it is you do. Because, you know, you could come across a supplier, or you could get a piece of advice that actually saves you a lot of money, or you could get some personal development that then leads on to something else. So actually, there is almost two camps here, but you need to put your return on investment hat on, actually, and just go, what is, you know, is there a return from this? It's the investment of my time, money and energy. Did it actually turn into something? And did I plan for what that was going to be? Because that's really, you know, a lot of people just go along. It's like, well, everyone's going to be exhibiting at that expo, I should be there because everyone else is going to be there. But actually, should you be there? And I think we talked about this earlier, is that everything you do in terms of events, same with everything in marketing, there has to be a beginning, middle and end.
Yeah.
And with events, more so than anything, is that the event is the filling. It's the bit in the middle of the sandwich, isn't it? There is actually two pieces of bread on either side of that event.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what I think, you know, we really would be really good to wrestle with today.
Yeah.
Is that I think people just go to the event, but they don't think about what happens before the event, and they don't think about what happens after the event. Yeah. And sometimes they haven't even thought about the actual what they're supposed to be doing in the event. So, I think there's a misconception there, or maybe, I don't know, maybe a lack of knowledge or a laziness, or just not having and not spending enough time thinking about it. If you want to get an investment on something, you've got to plan for it. In the same with every other marketing activity that you do. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, there's a conversation that I have quite regular if it's to do with an event, an exhibition, a campaign, you know, an activity, because ultimately that's what an event is. If you are hosting an event yourself, it is a marketing activity to put people into a room because of your business, your values, you know the service or the product, you know, that you provide. And I'll always say, what's the pre, what's the existing, and what's the post plan in reference to that event and that activity, because we've got to be making sure we're planning everything that happens pre the event taking place. A common misconception is I put an event on and people will just come. I will argue till I'm blue in the face to anyone who thinks that you just put an event on and people come on a whim. No. They do not.
It's that field of dreams thing. Yeah. If you build it, they will come.
You know, time is so precious nowadays, especially obviously after the past 5 years we've had in business. People sometimes value that more than anything, subject to how they're being impacted as well. So you've got to consider that pre. The existing is the event itself. Thinking about what you do at that exhibition, how you generate them conversations. It's not just about sometimes getting customers. It might be about collaborations, partnerships, supporting your local community, charity, whatever kind of that is, and that intention. And one goal for you by being there. And then there's the post. So what are you going to do with all that activity and all that time spent putting people in front of your business with their eyes and ears? Where is that follow-up strategy? Where is that post-communication? Where is that come back again element? Or let's have a coffee, you know, or let's tell them who's won the competition if it's on an exhibition. You know, it's that generative part. So it's not just about the event itself, it's about what that can lead to. You know, and a lot of people don't realise that. I've had plenty of conversations this month because the Doncaster Business Showcase is coming up. As we know, we're all from Yorkshire, good old Yorkshire. We know it's the biggest event in the calendar year in terms of exhibitions for South Yorkshire. And I'm already having conversations where some businesses haven't thought about what that stand's going to be, you know, why they're attending. Some have said to me, I'm just attending because I didn't get in last year.
Yep.
You know, and I'm like, but why? Like,
yeah.
Yes.
We talked about this earlier, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
About, as it stands now, I don't know if I should say this on a podcast or not, because it's November, there's still time to. As it stands now, I'm not exhibiting at Doncaster Business Showcase this year, which I have done for a few years now. But I think and this ties in really well, I think, with what you were kind of saying there,
Yeah.
is you've got to avoid box ticking.
Yeah.
So, if you, I always do that event, or someone told me I should do that. So there seems to be a bit of a thing around, understandably through COVID, but then after COVID, people going, oh, you should be doing webinars. Oh, right, I'll do webinars. Without any real thought of like, why? What's in it for me? Is it right for me? Will I enjoy doing that? Is it actually the audience that I'm trying to
exactly.
Like getting people to attend a webinar, it's not that hard, but getting the right people to attend a webinar, that's a completely different matter. And so just you've got to avoid that box ticking. It's quite good, I think, to question things. It's quite good to question ourselves about like what events should we go to and be involved in? What's worth your investment in terms of your time or in terms of your money? And what reflects where you're at as a business and where you're at as a brand, because we all change, don't we? Our businesses change and develop. Our audience, the people that we're trying to engage with and we're trying to get in front of, that changes and develops as our business changes and develops. And if we only ever go to the same events all the time, we're only ever really pitching ourselves to the same people all the time.
I agree. And also it's about that measure and return, very similar. I'm not exhibiting. I will be attending, not exhibiting. And that is because I have measured and returned for every event activity I do. You would expect that coming from my background, and it's what we encourage everyone to do listening to this podcast, is very much what James is saying. People change, your business change, it evolves, and what currently brings you in business is really where you should, explore further. And you'll not know that if you don't measure and return. And like, for example, with the Doncaster Business Showcase, I have measured and returned. I have done exhibitions and done the stands there. I have supported clients there, which again wasn't really beneficial for me, but it was beneficial for them. I then went 1 year to do it myself again, and I actually realised that I'm better speaking to people and networking and using it as a day to build relationships without exhibiting. I get a better return through conversation, and I can spend more time with them because of how populated that event is. I wouldn't know that if I didn't measure and return, and I didn't keep asking myself, what is it my client wants? What is it that I want in reference to the event? What do I want it to bring into me? What is that what factor for me? And if we don't ask that, ultimately, like we've said in the beginning, we become that busy fool, and we didn't start our businesses from what I am aware and the chatter in the local community.
And I think it's really important to know that you've got to go with what's right for your businesses too, because if someone says to me, oh, I did that event, it was rubbish, but somebody else 2 stands down had a really good show, you've got to do it based on your own business, because I alternate every year with we're talking about Doncaster, so I'll talk about Doncaster, but I alternate every year. 1 year I exhibit, 1 year I don't. It's grown so big now that actually what I get from that exhibition is, because everybody turns up there, it's a brilliant opportunity to catch up with everybody. What I found last year is I missed everybody because I kind of got stuck in one place and didn't see half people I wanted to talk to. So for me, it makes sense to have a place where I sit. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with my stand. And it's not going to be a salesy thing. It's going to be a bunch of chairs where everyone can come and chat, and they'll know where I am. And I will probably see all the people I want to talk to, because I will be in one place. Exactly. Which is, my brand is about talking and connecting and introducing people to people. So actually for me, it makes complete sense to be in one place where everyone can come to me and I can, introduce people to each other, because that's what I tend to find on my stand is someone will come up and say, oh, I haven't seen you for ages. They'll get talking to me. Someone else will come and I'm like, oh, have you met such and such? And then they get talking to each other. So actually, from my perspective, it's great. I don't feel I get an awful lot of guests from coming along. So if I have a stand that tries to do that, it doesn't work for me. So I think you've got to go into events with your own strategy, with your own, with your own kind of, go your own way. Because, I've done expos before that I've had a really, really good day with.
Yeah.
And someone else has said, oh, God, I had a terrible day.
Yeah.
And you're like...
It's all the time, doesn't it? That?
And I could, you could go to someone and they could say, oh, no, don't do that because I had a terrible day. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. No. Stop. There was a really good selection of people there that I'd never met before. So they'd obviously done their work, because actually I think this is a really important thing to discuss, actually. Expos, there's lots of them. There are a lot of expos out there who do a lot of work to market to getting the people to exhibit. But what they don't do is enough work on the visitor side of things. Yeah. So you can have a very poor show because there's not enough people coming through the doors. So for me, if there's a good selection of people coming through the door and you've got the numbers, in theory, that's going to be good. Doesn't necessarily mean it will be, because they're not your people. They won't be. But I think you've got to, like everything in marketing, you've got to have some things that you do that work, and you've got to be testing some other things alongside it all the time. That's what we do in marketing.
Yeah.
You've got some stuff that some stuff that you're testing all the time and going, right, that's a good thing, that's not a good thing, and you've got to keep doing that. You've got to go your own way, and you've got to focus on what's right for you, I think. And like you said, you've got to think about what comes before, what's happening on the event, what you want to achieve from the event, and what's happening afterwards.
Yeah, I would say on an organiser's point of view, in reference to that, I see it quite a lot, where, there's a lot of effort putting people in the room, but the organisation aren't really thinking of an innovative way to where their exhibitors can invite their audience to come along with them. So, for example, quite an innovative idea is to give them tickets, but to give to clients to come along and support the event. Exhibitions do tend to be for free in terms of visitor capacity. So it's just an innovative way, instead of kind of sharing a ticket link and hoping people would come. If, for example, them stall holders were to be given 10 VIP tickets and they can come along and they come for a coffee, with the exhibitors prior to opening an hour before, that creates a huge buzz before them doors are open. So when the visitors are coming, because the one thing that keeps your visitors there is the community, the networking in the room that happens when that exhibition takes place. And I think there is a question and an argument to ask these event organisers who are putting these events on, are you actually thinking about what the so what factor is and that innovative factor for you? Because ultimately in kind of the theory of events, if you put events on, it should have one of 6 key benefits, and that is about brand awareness, visibility, corporate responsibility, attraction, retention, and then obviously community, and kind of that that bigger piece that comes along with events, and if you, as an organiser or an organisation putting on events, if you aren't thinking about that bigger picture or that impact, or, making it easy for your stall holders to bring people along that will ultimately benefit everybody in that room, then I think you're missing a trick.
I think that's an important question, actually, isn't it? If you're actually going to buy a stand at an event, then actually it's a realistic thing to ask the organiser, what is your marketing strategy for attraction of guests? Because actually, to be fair, arguably, if I'm just decide to go and put on an exhibition right now, once I've filled that room with exhibitors, I've made my money. Do I really care beyond that? And if you don't, then that sustainability's not there, is it?
There's a double problem here as well. So one of the issues that I have with certain expos and some that are a little bit more specialist is a little bit different. But if we're going on the idea of geographical, in which case it's just kind of any business, isn't it? It's not specialising in a particular sort of industry or genre. What I've realised is there's a pretty high percentage of the people that I would see as being my target market are the other exhibitors. So they're not going round, they're not coming to see me, and I'm not going to have time to go and see them because we're both exhibiting. And they're the ones that are actually investing in their marketing, doing something that's quite visible, that's putting them out there, talking directly to people, all the things that I would go, they tick quite a lot of the boxes of someone that'd be quite good at doing, kind of conversational marketing, doing podcasting.
Yeah.
I have won business from a lot of expos. I've won business from Doncaster Showcase. I'm not in any way putting it down. I think it's a marvellous event, and I, like you, will be there.
Yeah.
And looking forward to doing it a little bit differently this year. But I do find quite a lot of the people that come up and talk are probably not quite what I would put in my category of being target market. So I think quite a lot of events don't think through the idea of actually there's people who are exhibiting that could really do with being sort of hooked up together. Some do a great job of doing they'll have like a networking breakfast session before the main expo that's just for the exhibitors. That's brilliant. That's a great idea.
So I do that for
the
I do that for the Barnsley Business Expo.
Yeah.
I run an event for the exhibitors up front. It's a lunch. They get to we talk a little bit about preparing for the expo so that it gets everyone focused. So they actually take a little bit of time out to think about it because we're all busy and it kind of ends up being shoved under the mat a bit. But we also get them talking to each other, and the great thing about that is that you can quite often get early value from actually being an exhibitor by already having had some valuable conversations with the other exhibitors before you've even turned up at the actual event.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot to be said for that, actually, an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it's also just asking yourself that question, isn't it, on both occasions? Okay, so I'm going to dedicate my time to attending that event or putting on that event or exhibiting, but what is it that I want it to do? What is it that I want to be that one key benefit for me? Because if you have multiple key benefits, you will ultimately confuse yourself and them, because when they come and talk to you, you'll probably do verbal diarrhea, as I would call it, and give them everything and anything, without it being concentrated and really targeting on that time and that investment as well in some cases, if obviously you're exhibiting or putting on an event. And it's just coming really back to that why and that so what factor. And if you're really clear on that, you can, for example, in some formats with exhibitions, go onto their websites and find out who is exhibiting. Is there anyone you can speak to before that you want to introduce yourself to? And no, I don't mean cold call, and no, I don't mean cold emails, just for the record.
Or cold LinkedIn messages.
Yeah, I just mean actually looking at how you could add value and benefit for them. Remember, no one likes to be sold to, even at exhibitions, but exhibitions are one of the best ways to actually generate sales for your business, in my opinion. But it's actually like looking at, okay, so how can I add value? So, for example, I've had someone who does branding and graphics have a look and say, well, can you offer them a complimentary audit? Can you give them some tips and, teasers that they could use, to show an example of what you can do. So they might not use you for this event, hopefully they will, but they will keep you in mind for future events, because also with exhibitions, seeing as we're on that topic, if they do exhibitions well, they tend to do multiple. I know some engineering companies that will go and spend like £60,000 on a week in Europe on an exhibition,
shipping all manner of stuff over there, stuff like that. They're big deals, aren't they?
They are big budgets, but also I've been in some conversations with manufacturers and said, okay, so what was your return? And they go, what do you mean? I was like, what's your return from that £60,000 investment? And they can't tell me. And for a small business owner myself, that just blows my mind. But then again, they'll say, and rightly so, it's not about what happens in the room, it's about what happens after it. And we're intentional about attending that event every year because we have returned and measured it. We just do that at the end of the financial year. We just are too big to do that in terms of per individual event. So it's really about understanding them customers and them businesses that are at that exhibition, to understand, are they the decision makers, understand if this is their first or their 10th event, and just where you can add that extra value, because that's what'll help them in that first
it's like
instance.
anything in marketing, though, isn't it? You've got to do something consistently and frequently.
Yeah.
So if you've chosen to do an advert in a magazine, you've got to turn up and do that advert in that magazine on a regular basis, because you're not going to get anything from doing it once. It's the same if you always attend a certain event and people know where to find you, they will turn up and find you at that event. If you always show up on a Monday with a useful post on social media, then that's where you are, and that's where they know where to find you. So, there is an element of, if you have set your scene out that's what you're going to do, then you've got to do it consistently, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, you can be good, you can be bad. But ultimately, if you're not consistent, they won't remember you. And that goes to any form, whether it's an event. I'll always, and please, anyone listening to this, if you're going to do an event, don't just do one event. A lot of time and effort for one event, and then what tends to happen is it falls flat if there isn't something for them to go on to next. Now, it doesn't have to be another event, it can be another form of activity, but it's just about that consistency piece, and just making sure that it is repetition, it is remembered, but above all, it provides value, and you provide value to them, and that's what you should do within an event, within your marketing, within your exhibition stall, because people want to feel like you care and you give a damn, because if you don't, they simply will move on to the next business and have a conversation with them. So you've got to do that consistency piece, but you've got to provide value as well.
And what does a good follow-up look like? Because I find this really fascinating in that I go to events sometimes and I go for a wander around, and I'll give people my card and say, will you give me a shout because I want to talk to you about something, or will you connect with me because I'd like to talk more about this? And I never hear from them, and I think, oh God, I wish I'd taken their card, because then I could have at least followed up with them, because I want to talk to them about something, and they don't follow up with me. And I do think that actually there's a really high percentage of people who don't follow up after an event.
Yeah.
And I find that just really crazy, actually. Yeah. But what do you bear? Because obviously you both do quite a lot of events. What do you do for your following up?
I hate following up. So this is all about kind of setting an intention beforehand. So if I am going to an expo or anything that it might be that I'm going to an open networking thing or something, I will say, right, what I want out of this is I want to identify 2 really good people that I want to follow up with afterwards. And just concentrate on that, and that makes it all feel a bit more manageable for me. So yeah, just focusing in on maybe 2 or 3 people that I think are in the right kind of sweet spot for worth, not necessarily saying, oh, I think that they could be a potential client, just like I think that there's something there, and it's worth us following up. I mean, and that makes it more manageable for me. Some people want just as many email addresses as possible, don't they, to put into a database for a newsletter or something. I'm not sure it particularly matters what that thing is. It's the intention, isn't it? And knowing in advance what I want out of this is this for this reason, and this is how it's going to help me achieve that big overall goal that I'm working towards. If you don't have that and you just think, oh, I'll just go and have some great conversations with people, I'll meet some people because that's good. It sort of is, but again, we go back to that same question at the beginning of like, well, what's the point? It doesn't. If there's no strategy behind it, then you are just a busy fool.
Yeah, to be fair, that strategy is what I always say to people for open networking, or any networking actually, is, people say to me, how do you work a room of 100 people? And I'm like, well, you don't. You go and have some conversations with a few different people, and you come out and you go, right, there was a couple of people in there that I'm going to have an onward conversation with. And if you get a couple, 2 to 3 conversations out of a big room like that, then that's a good evening or a good afternoon or whatever, rather than trying to like confetti your business cards everywhere. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting look on an expo as well, actually, because you could just go, right, I'm going to contact everybody. I sometimes use some sort of like giveaway or something. I think at the last expo I did, I had a guide on how to get return on investment from your networking, and I sent that to a few people, and actually that that actually was quite useful. It did get some conversations in it, and it did result in some guests, and so actually that was a useful use of my time. So I think actually that's kind of interesting, really. It's good. You don't have to do the volume follow up, but you definitely do need to follow up. So what do you do, Zoe?
I think it really depends on your audience and it being event specific. So I definitely agree with smaller groups and networking opportunities, for example, in person. You should very much go with the intention of really connecting with, a minimum of 3 people that you've had good conversation with, or maybe you've met again and you haven't had that coffee and you can get that coffee in the diary. Because if every networking event you're going to and you're coming away with 3 booked in conversations, value conversations, that's a really good ratio. If it's for an exhibition, we can kind of guess that an exhibition is going to be a higher footfall. You can do that by having a look at how many stands sold, positioning, history of the event, just for you to gauge on them stats and see how busy it's going to be. And then really thinking about your data capture, and it's the intention for you as a business for that data capture and how you're going to follow up with them after, but also the intention for them in asking the question, how would you like to receive information? Because obviously our world now is so diverse in terms of neuro-inclusion, I think, and I'm obviously... For those that don't know, on the podcast, I have learning disabilities, so for me, auditory is a lot better than written and email. I still respond to email, but if you send me a WhatsApp, you send me a voice note, you send me a messenger, I'm more going to respond to that in terms of efficiencies than an email, which my emails kind of get looked at a couple of times a day maximum, because obviously I'm normally out on the road delivering, and I think it's about asking that question. That's why I always say is have that intention for yourself, but also ask the question to them. So every time I go to an exhibition, I do have a form of data capture. It's normally through a game of interactivity, so you can stay on the stall for a longer period of time than you would without one. But wherever that data is going, you can help yourself and kind of preset communications up on the back end of that through your website or through your mailing campaign to just say thank you for providing your data, we will be in touch. But why you will be in touch, and make sure it's intentional to what they've obviously downloaded, what they've subscribed to, whatever that is, because you can preempt that. You can preempt communication. And the number one tip I would give anybody for follow up on an exhibition is, if they give you a business card and you think this has been a really good conversation, star it and put it in your pocket or take a picture on your phone and send it yourself. Because they are the conversations you need to be having over the phone through a coffee first, because the conversation's gone really well. And mentioning the Doncaster Showcase earlier, I'll give you a perfect example. I was on my stand, a lady came by that I've known for a couple of years, and we just reconnect at that event every year. No matter what I do, no matter what business I've been supporting, she always remembers me and I do her. And she was asking me about social media, and luckily Elliot from Example Marketing was walking by, and I just grabbed him because he's through Growth Community. As you know, we're all part of Growth Community, and together we spoke to her because I knew it just wasn't me that she needed. She needed that additional support in terms of an expert with social media, and that customer has only just come on board. So it's taken us over 6 months to build even more of a foundation and relationship, because we've really understood what's happened before, what's happening now, and what they want to happen in the future. But her details didn't go into my data capture on the day. Her business card was starred, it was put into my pocket, I took a picture of it, and I literally put on this email, first priority, Wednesday morning, proactivity brackets, because that's what she said to me. We've worked with people before and they don't seem to give a damn.
No.
And you come across as that you give a damn, and so does Elliot. And it turned out that was the deciding factor. They wanted someone who cared. So it was about being intentional and capturing that information, but ensuring I followed up after it to what they said and what that feedback was, and just didn't treat them like a number.
Yeah, and it's a really good point because I do the same. I write
really
on my
important.
business cards. I write down little notes on the
I have
business
black
cards.
business cards, so that doesn't work. I have to rethink that now.
Oh, well, I
Get a white pen.
in my
Bad strategy.
in my little event kit. I have an inquiry form as well. It's just a piece of paper, but I'll clip the business card to the inquiry form, and then I just
Piece of paper?
Yeah.
What?
Because quite often when I'm talking to people, that I just need to quickly write some stuff down. So that's what I do, and I always keep a note of the things I've said, so that when I go back the next day and I stare at this pool of business cards, I know exactly which ones are going to be my priority and which ones are not, and I know exactly what I discussed because my brain is like a sieve. I talk to a lot of people, and I get home and stare at it otherwise and go, "Oh my God, what the hell was I doing with that person?" But at least if I've got some notes, I know exactly what I've got to do with that person.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say, James, for the black business card is having a black business card with space on the back that's white, or having a white pen, Tipex.
Don't do white.
I know you don't. I know you don't. I just said that. But ultimately, I think it ties into
I'll
what...
start giving out Tipex with my business cards.
Yeah.
Remember the Tipex mouse that you used to be able to get? Where you
Oh, yeah, I used to love that.
yeah,
Love it.
Sure, you can still get those on Amazon. I think over the course of the last 10 minutes or so, what we've touched on, kind of, is something that when I realised this, it kind of changed the way that I approach stuff like expos. So I said earlier, I kind of go into expos and other events. It's about 2 or 3 people that I can follow up with. Now you mentioned there about someone it took 6 months for them to sign up. I actually think that's not bad because I go into this thinking, right, why are other people going to expos? Why are people there? Because no one gets up in the morning thinking, I'm going to go to an expo today and I'm going to spend a few £1,000s. Everyone that's there is there to sell. That's why people are at expos. The people who have stands are there to sell. The other people that attend probably have businesses. Ultimately, they're going there to sell. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to buy what you want, but they're not going there with the intention of buying what you're selling. So it is going to take some time. If you engage with them, that's brilliant. That's a really good result for me anyway. And what I do might be a little bit different depending on what businesses do. If someone engages with me, they're not going to turn around and go, great, okay, let's can we do a 10 grand project that starts tomorrow? Not happening. No. But, if I can engage and think this is someone that's interesting and, might be something that comes of this, probably won't be with them, but they might know someone who might know someone who might know someone, and it might take 2 years. But I realise that's the game that I've got to play when it comes to expos and other events. And networking's a bit like that. No one goes to a networking event thinking, I'm going to spend some money today, I'm going to buy some new services. Everyone that goes, guests, members, everyone is there to sell. And the world doesn't work if all we do is sell. Someone somewhere's got to buy, and that's the bit that takes time, isn't it? And that was a little bit of a eureka moment for me when I realised there's no one going to an expo with the intention of spending a load of money. It'd be lovely if there were, but they're not. So we've got to work extra hard to get that money out of them because they don't intend to give it to us.
No.
And that if you can do that in 6 months, I think you've done pretty well.
I think it's about it's exploring. It's exploring potential people, isn't it? And you being able to be the human in your business, because if you do email marketing or do website marketing or all those sort of things, they're not very human, a lot of them, are they? And you can do video marketing and stuff, but actually you're still not a human stood there. So expos and events are such a brilliant way for you, the human, to come out from behind it all and engage with somebody in a human way. So I think really that's the crux of it. Events allow you, the human, to be seen and heard, and for the people coming along to be seen and heard, and for you to connect in real life. And that's what we kind of missed during COVID. We couldn't connect in real life, could we? And so I think events allow us to give value, to engage, to actually connect as humans in our business. And I think, and that allows people to decide, and you do get people who go to expos who will walk around going, I need a new accountant. So I'm going to go walk around and meet some accountants because I know there'll be a bunch of them in this room. So it's a really good way to go and meet some accountants. Yeah. So, I'm in the market market to do some social media. I'm going to go and walk around and talk to some people and get a feel for them. And there are a lot of people who do actually do that for expos. And if you're there, you get to talk to people and you get to share your brand and with people and how you work. And, so actually you're getting those conversations quite early on in that process, aren't you? So
it's all strategy, isn't it? That's what it comes down to, is working out where you are in the market.
Yeah.
I recognise there isn't, actually people do say this to me, but I'm not sure it's true. There isn't going to be anyone that's going to come up to me at an expo and go, "Oh, I've been looking to hire someone to help me do a podcast." People come up and go, "Oh, I've been thinking about podcasting." That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is just putting myself in front of them and starting some cogs whirring. And that's it for me. And I recognise that if I come away and go, "Oh, I don't think anyone's going to sign up from today," then I'll probably never do another event ever. But, recognising what I do, where it fits in, where people at certain events, whereabouts they're going to be on that journey and how long it's going to take to get them somewhere else. Other businesses, it probably is a bit different, isn't it? And other stuff that you do. And this is going to bring us on to another related but slightly different subject to that, which is merch. Right, so merch at experts, right? Because people think, "Oh, I better you've got to have something to give away," without necessarily thinking it through and thinking, "Well, why? What do you give them? How does that engage, and what does it do? And actually, does it reflect all the conversations that we've had on this podcast over the 3 seasons about brand and the importance of brand?" And people just go, I'll get pens because they're the cheapest, or I'll get notebooks. People like notebooks. I'm like, does it reflect you? Does it reflect your brand? We had Claire here yesterday, recorded one of these episodes for this season, and we didn't really get onto this subject. It'd be interesting if we could wheel her back in to join this bit of the conversation now.
I could just see that.
So I think quite a few, do get it. There's some that get it really right.
Yeah.
There's quite a few that get it wrong, where you think it's really nice that you've done that, but you've spent a lot of money on giving something to some people who probably like what you've given them, but they're never going to be your customer. There's no logic there. It's not, the strategy's just not there.
It isn't. It's about being intentional, isn't it? Coming back to the previous question, it's all about intention and understanding kind of what happens next and creating the best impression through, body language, through talking, through listening, and through that added value piece, which lies into everything that you present at events, whether that be through your vocabulary, whether that be through your merch, through your business cards, through your leafleting, your banners, your messaging, whatever that is. And yes, very much so, I have seen it done well, and I have seen it done not so well. And the one thing I would recommend anybody with this podcast is always have something useful on your merch, because the reason I say that is because a pen, for example, is useful. You use a pen, but a pen will reach 11 different people in its lifetime, which means your brand has touched, or message or marketing, whatever is the intention of what's put on that pen, will reach 11 different people in its lifetime before it runs out. So, for example, on our stand, we always have trolley tokens, and that is because we know that at least once a week they will use that trolley token and be reminded of our brand, Ask Zoe, and what Ask Zoe does, because we've put messaging on it. So it's being intentional. Yes, trolley tokens doesn't have really anything to do with Ask Zoe. Yes, it could be more innovative, but I always have one thing that's useful. There's always something intentional that ties into what I do, whether it be a branded mug, whether it be a branded notepad, come and have a brew with me, take some notes of what I've said and the ideas that I've shared, whatever that is, there will be something like that comes to mind for your listeners, that's creative, that ties into what you do. But do have something useful as well, because we want that to be intentional and for that person to be reminded of
do something with it, not just come home. Not just going to go home and just dump them on the bin. Somebody gave me an windscreen scraper once. Yeah. I use that all the time. Every year, the same thing comes out every year, and I think, God, that's really useful.
There are useful things that I have a lot.
Not used all year, but I do use it.
I have a lot of Capital radio eye scrapers that I stole from the store cupboard when I worked there. I still have a supply of those. They're probably collector's items now.
Can I have one?
No, I go through one every year. just to illustrate this, so I really struggled with merch for a long time because I thought I actually quite like a pen, but I'm like, I don't just want to have something for the sake of it, and waited, and that was partly down to wanting to also refresh my branding and stuff like that as well. But eventually hit upon giving away packets of mints, because I'm like, what I do, I refer to it as conversational marketing. What helps you have a good conversation, having really nice minty breath, and I'm like, there's a connection there. And then got some branded caps done, because I'm always wearing a cap. So I'm like, there's some logic there, and it's not just stab in the dark stuff. And I think it doesn't really matter what it is, as long as there is some kind of logic behind it. If you just give away sweets because you think people like sweets, it's all right. It just falls a bit short, doesn't it? It's just like, we can all do a little bit better than that.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a perfect example, and I don't think she'll mind me sharing, but someone we know called Neeks at Neeks Ford from Afford Mortgages looked after my house sale, and this is how we got talking about it, because she went to go and exhibit for the first time. Never did exhibitions before. I think was relatively around maybe 18 months in, 2 years to the business, and she rang me up and asked me my opinion on biscuits. And she was going to get some biscuits, branded biscuits made up. And I just said to her, that's great, but what else? And she goes, well, what do you mean? And I says, what else do you have to give them for them to take away? Because what happens to a biscuit, Neeks? So it's great to have a branded house biscuit, but what happens to a biscuit?
They eat it.
They eat it. So where does your brand go? In the stomach, ultimately. And she went, oh, I never thought of that. And I says, so I think have it. Great, because everyone loves a biscuit. And, you will get people that come up just for that biscuit because they need a sugar hit. But what else is it that you can have? And we came up with stress balls, but stress balls that were houses, because she looks after mortgages. So there's a representation there back to the brand. But if you ask anybody, what's the 3 things that cause you stress in life? Moving house or buying a house, probably a wedding or divorce, or probably maybe having children. They're quite stressful times, aren't they? New chapters, new beginnings, that's all they represent. And that's what she helps. She helps de-stress over that lifetime of buying or selling a property. So it tied back into actually what she does and offers her customers. And I remember getting a picture from Neeks, and she was like, thank you so much. And there were other people that helped her as well, but it was just that conversation to think about before you buy, before you go to that event, what are you bringing with you? What is going to create the best impact and relate to your messaging and your brand?
Story, isn't it? There's got to be a story there.
Yeah.
There's a story on, buying a... I mean, thankfully, I've only done one of the things that you mentioned there out of the 3. But it was buying a house, and Neeks helped me get my mortgage.
Yeah.
And it is stress, and it doesn't matter, mine should have been the easiest thing in the world. I was buying first-time buyer, no chain involved, it should be dead straight, and it's still so many things that go wrong. And it's like, moving day comes around, and you're like...
Yeah.
I'm never going to manage it. I'm never going to get all this stuff from this house to that house. I'll just have to burn it all and start again. It feels like just feels impossible, and it really is stressful. So, that idea of I understand how stressful it is. I'm here to try and make some parts of that a little bit easier. There's a story there. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really kind of good sort of takeaway, or whatever people want to kind of refer to it as, is if you're thinking about merch to give away anything, is there a can you build a story around it? And if you can't, just have a bit of a think, give you a shout, talk to other people that see if you can build a story around something, and then it's just going to fit so much better.
Yeah, it's memorable, isn't it? Which is what we want to be. Before we kind of come to sort of homework and stuff, I just want to quickly touch on organising our own events.
Yeah,
because there's lots of events for us to go to, but what is the value in us organising our own events? Because let's be honest, we both know this, organising events is completely exhausting. It takes a lot of effort, there's a lot goes into it. And I always say to people, because people will organise, say, I'm going to organise an event, and I always say to them, if you go to an event and it's really slick, that a lot of hard work has gone on behind it. If you can see things, if the event looks kind of clunky and it's not been that well organised, if it's like a swan gliding across the lake, someone's done a really amazing job on the background, and there's a lot of moving parts to that. Definitely. So it is not always for the faint-hearted to run an event, but there is a lot of benefits, certainly for small businesses, in putting on an event.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different types of events they could do. So what are kind of, I guess, the top 3 useful events they could do, and why would we do it?
Well, it all comes down to them as a business and what value that they can provide. So I don't believe in just putting an event on, as we've mentioned, really in the beginning of this episode, just for the sake of it. It has to be intentional of why you want to bring a people in the room, to whether it's to come and learn from you, whether it's to come and celebrate you, whatever that purpose is. I do always recommend, for example, one key event is we all have a business anniversary every year, and it's something in terms of an event you can bring people together to celebrate that achievement. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be an in-person event. It can be something to do with online and a countdown to an event, of an announcement or of a promotion or of an incentive that's coming on that anniversary. But, bringing people in, of your supporters, your clients, and to say thank you, because people want to feel valued. People want to feel something emotive, with that emotive and justification after that, is the principle within marketing and sales. So, that is a really key event for every small business owner, because we forget to pat ourselves on our back we do well. And if we do well, running a business is hard. So why not celebrate that? And that is something you can do, for example, on a yearly basis, but plan it so it's impactful and it sits well. Again, it all depends on your audience. For example, another event you could consider are webinars, as James has mentioned within this podcast, or seminars in person, exhibitions, whatever that is for you, and that intention of what you want as an end result of putting that event on.
Those kind of events can be quite a good lead gen. If you get them right, can't they? Yeah. Because if you kind of give people a sample of the goods effectively, then there is going to be there is a marketing campaign that can run through that. We're back to that beginning, middle, and end thing, that of people who will take something away and just crack on with it themselves, and some people who will go, actually, I need that, and then you put them into your funnel of people who are going to potentially work with you. So they can be quite lead gen orientated, those things, or they can just be an opportunity for you to, show off your authority, which is part of that trust equation, isn't it?
But also that quite nicely leads into what third recommendation, because again, it all depends on what you want that event to do for you and why you're putting that on. But one thing that I think is underutilised within my network is that collaboration factor and doing events in partnership. Because if your, for example, target audience is B2B and you can collaborate with a consultant who has a B2B audience, why not complement? Why not add that added value piece and, tackle the audience together in terms of that self-generative part to bring people into the room? So, to put an event on, is a big decision, I believe, within a business and a marketing strategy, but it has to be intentional. You have to know what target audience you want to come into the room, and you have to know why you're doing it, and it does have to, in my opinion, feed into them 6 key benefits. So it either has to raise your awareness, build your visibility, attract or retain clients, because that's also, as a fourth event, something to consider about giving thanks to your existing customers.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've talked about this on this podcast a couple of times. I think retention is a very underutilized campaign. People 100%. Spend so much time in acquisition and forget how important it is to nurture the people you've already got.
100%. It's more cost effective to retain rather than attract, and a lot of people forget that. And then event is a way you can do it. Quite a popular retention event I recommend for the financial market is, like financial advisors or accountants to host a table at an event, bring their key clients in with a guest so they can wine and dine them to say thank you. Because you should be, building on that top 5 client profile and, building more like for like customers into your business. The 5th benefit is always that added value, community, corporate responsibility piece. But above anything, is it sales generative? Is it going to impact on a sales basis? Because it's okay if it does. You just have to have that intention, and they have to be clear. You've got to keep it simple. If no one understands why they're coming to that event or why they should come to that event, ultimately a confused buyer does not buy. And that is the same within sales. It's the same within marketing of your business, and it's the same within an event. They don't understand why they're giving up their time for 2-3 hours, a full day, and giving you that monetary for that value. It has to give them that, because if not, they will tell the next person. You want it to be a positive experience, and you want to create that ripple effect. And if not, we all know that rule in business. You know, they will tell 3 people if they've had a good experience. They'll tell 10 people if they've had a bad experience. So that it's got to be understood, and it's got to be well received.
Are we about homework time, I think?
I think we are.
That has, I think, given a lot of feed for thought on this topic. And I hope that more people, A, think about doing events, but B, actually do events more intentionally. So, yeah.
Way of phrasing it.
Yeah. So what have you got planned for our class to do for their homework?
Well, I thought I would set the homework based on one of the top questions that I think I get asked in terms of networking, events in general, is the factor of going into a room and it not being the right room. And a lot of people say to me, I'm going to networking, I'm going to this event, it's still not really hitting the mark, it's not really hitting the nail on the head, and I don't know why. And I'll always ask the question, is the person in the room that you want to speak to, are the people that you want to bring into the room the right people? And they'll always say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, because they haven't asked themselves that question in terms of who is it that they want to speak to. And the best way you can identify more people to speak to is come back to your business and have a look at your top 5. So your top 5 in your business should be the sectors or people or persons that you bring the most value to. You know, the ones that you want more of, the ones that doesn't feel like work. And I want you to profile them for homework. I want you to pick them top 5 people, persons or sectors and profile them on LinkedIn, and just try and find more that you can build relationships with and connections with. Because the one thing I want you to do once you've done that and you feel you've done that well, is see where they're hanging out, because you will see commonality, because they tend to hang out in the same spaces.
Absolutely.
If you don't feel comfortable with LinkedIn, you can always ask that question in your own top 5. Where did I meet them? So I can meet more of them. That's another question you can ask. But I think for this episode and for the homework, the task with LinkedIn would be really useful, because you can look at your top 5, you can look at connecting with more people that fit into your top 5 as a business, and then see where they're hanging out so you can hang out too, and hopefully have a more positive experience. But please don't stalk. Please remember, it's about value. No one likes to be sold to. It's about building relationships and being intentional, and build relationships
human and friendly kind of
the
way.
right way.
I'm compressing that down slightly. So what I heard is the homework is don't be a stalker. And I'm like, I think I can do that. I think I can manage that. So thank you, Zoe. What a great point to end on.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks
for having me, guys.
Well, thank you for your attendance today. I hope you've learned something new. Every day is a business school day after all. If you'd like to contact us, or perhaps put yourself forward as a future guest, find either Nicky or myself on LinkedIn, or you can drop us a line using the links in the show notes. Right, school is out. Please wait for the bell before you leave.